Hi, this is Claire Prezia from Verity Papery, and today I'm going to show you how to make this card using some new Hero Arts Valentine's Day stamps. Alright, so we're going to take the new stamp set, Romeo and Juliet, and we're going to be using a lot of these little images. So I'm placing the images on a bunch of clear blocks and kind of doubling up by putting one on one side, one on the other side. And we're going to stamp bottom, it's not so much a border, and it's not really a background, it's a decoration, I guess. We're going to stamp our decoration, and I'm going to concentrate most of the stamping on the top and a little bit on the bottom. So when I'm doing this kind of design, I usually play with it on some scrap pieces of paper first, but when I'm actually going down to the cardstock, what I'll do is I'll stamp my one small image in one color, or maybe if I'm using it all the color, I'll just take my first image and I'll stamp it in random points, and then I will kind of use that as kind of the guide to put all the other images. I kind of fill in all the little spaces after I got my first few images down there. So what I like to do is kind of alternate between the colors, even though it's a little more tedious to have to keep opening up your ink pad and adding this and that, like changing colors. I'm going from fresh peach to yellow. I do it this way because if I tried stamping on my purple and then my pink and then my navy, they wouldn't fit together so nicely, like as a puzzle. There'd be weird clumpy areas, and I might not be able to plan how the colors group together. So it is a little more tedious to do it this way, but I like it because, like I mentioned, it's kind of like a puzzle. It's kind of, building this all together. I kind of just pick and choose what things I'm willing to spend more time on. So before I finish stamping the bottom portion of my decoration, or whatever we choose to call it, I die cut a sentiment from the Love Stampin' Cut because I want to make sure that I stamp the bottom of this image. I want to have enough space for the sentiment, and if I stamp without die cutting that sentiment, then I might stamp a little too far up and the sentiment will be covering some of the flowers, or I might not stamp close enough, I might have awkward positioning. So I just die cut my sentiment, kind of planned that, added a little bit to the top there with some more hearts, and then I went in and finished the bottom because I had a better idea of how I wanted it to kind of go around the sentiment and just fill that bottom area. So one thing I wanted to point out when I made this, one of the images that I used is actually, it's a single image, but I cut my stamp, so I made two images. I know some people might be freaking out because I cut my stamp, but if you're cutting high quality photopolymer stamps, as long as you cut strategically, you shouldn't have a problem. And when I say strategically, you could see with those, that one image that I cut in half, it came together really well because I cut it at the meeting of the vine and the flower. I didn't like cut straight like halfway through a flower. That would look kind of weird if I stamped that by itself anyway. But it doesn't affect the impression of the stamps later on. With these really high quality stamps, they go back together so easily, especially if you cut them with well, at least I find when I cut them with a sharper scissors, that they come back together a little easier. So yeah, I know some people, they know that you can cut your stamps apart and they'll be fine, but they still don't like to cut them apart. Whatever floats your boat. I just wanted to point out that you can cut these nice stamps and it won't affect the impression. So moving on. For the sentiment, I wanted to give a little dimension, so I die cut it out of my cardstock and then I die cut it out of the foam. So to make sure that the foam stayed in place, sometimes it's more flexible. If you just pull it out, then you might get the shape, the word bent a little bit out of how it was originally intended to flow. So instead of pulling my foam, my die cut foam out from the extra space I have around it, I adhered my die cut cardstock to it, and that made sure that the foam was, kept its shape in the original scripty form, and it also made it easier for me to actually adhere the die cut cardstock. The foam I used to die cut actually already had adhesive on the back, so that made it easier to adhere my word to my stamped panel. So I'm just going to adhere that panel onto a craft card base, top it off with some gems, and that pretty much finishes up the card. If you have any questions or comments, you can leave them on my blog or you can leave them on the YouTube comment section. I will have the supplies listed on both the blog and the YouTube comment section. So, thanks so much for watching and have a great day. God bless. Bye.